Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel and to the third episode of this still relatively work in progress named podcast. And today with me is another friend of mine, this time from a land a bit further to the east of, well, the east in Bulgaria, not the east of something.
Of the east of something. Okay, I see how it is. The eastern frontiers. Much.
If you would like
Yeah.
to introduce yourself, my friend.
Yeah, hello, my name is Jovko. I'm from Burgas, which is far east on the coast of the Black Sea. So here you go. You can at least say that. So yeah.
And yeah, so there's been a couple of the episodes of the podcast so far, and I take it anyone who will be watching these in the future would have already watched the last couple. Hopefully, the audio is all right for this one as well. So, just a general background idea. This podcast is essentially talking about what the life is like for the younger generations just around the world at the moment. In the first episode, we were talking about the role like families can play and others when they're influencing your choices with your passions. And then in the last episode, we had a bit more of a focus on education and things of like young people dealing with apathy and ambition. So we shall get the ball rolling with this. My friend, in your opinion, how are things going for the youth of the world at the moment?
Well, that really depends which part of the world we're talking about. In some parts, it's
Let's
not
try
going.
your part.
Nah, my part overall, is I would say, it's been 20 years, but yeah, it still feels like we still have Soviet ties and so what. We've been like more and more westernized, and at least from my perspective, right, we're still like 3 or 4 years behind other Western societies, but in that same spirit, we've achieved a lot, and like we've had never had this much access to information, to knowledge, to free travel, is to like 20 years beforehand when my parents were roughly my age. They didn't have that, and I feel like I have had the blessed opportunity to, at least here in Bulgaria, to like take advantage of those things and explore more, become more knowledgeable, and just overall be sort of on par with other like with the Western youth in that sense. So yeah, but it's still like as I said, it still needs time. Like I'm one of the lucky few here, which like has abused these kinds of things. Most of my other like my same age friends don't even know half of the things. They don't know like Erasmus projects. They haven't traveled at all outside the country, so it's still like a new thing to like use this type of stuff basically around here.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting to hear because, I mean, I watch the news, pay attention to, I try my best to pay attention to what's going on in and around different countries and all of that. Will admit, like the sort of location of Bulgaria is like tends to be I'm a bit more fuzzy on normally. Um, one of and it's not just there. There are other places that I'm similar on because there's so much that goes on in the world. It's pretty impossible to keep track of all of it. Um, and I know that last time with my Swedish mate Johan, we were talk the thing he brought up, especially regarding where he is, was education. And I know you just mentioned about certain people where you are not having the opportunities to go out of the country, not being given the chances to explore and almost learn of their own volition. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, but you'd be surprised the reasons why though. Like I may have presented it so they like don't have the economical chance on going so, but I would say it's more of that socialism stigma, like still the social the communist ways that like in our proud nationalical ways that like we should stick to our country and we should learn from our own education and we should be like nationalists and all that jazz. It's not like the opportunity is presented to everybody. For example, like when I went to study abroad in the UK, right, I got the student loan, which was offered at that time was offered to pretty much everybody who met the criteria for it. And to be honest, it wasn't that high of a criteria. I even got a scholarship in my English levels for it because I applied with English and mathematics to my university. And it's just that it's unknown. Like people here have like a sort of fear towards Western societies and like how I wouldn't say bad the West is, but like just fear that they will be mistreated in the West because they're like Easterners and they're from like the old commie states.
Yeah, I think there's with everything that's been going on over here recently, and it's not limited to here, but we're the ones who have been probably the most insane about it. There's probably similar fears starting to come from other nations about the Western nations, like they're offering up, but then there's this hesitation because you hear all the rhetoric and the headline grabbing, and it's like you're providing this great picture, but are you really offering that? And with like the youth and everything, because that's what this podcast is focusing and trying to keep to that, and not getting overly political. Um, I mean, the town I've grown up in and around, like I've met people who are younger than me who have come over from places like Poland and that, and they've been. It's been interesting to meet them and see like the different experiences. And all I can say is, glad you managed to get the scholarship when you did, because the state things are in over here at the moment is the. But
Yeah.
the because you've we've talked before, just getting on to a bit of the different topic here. We've talked before about the idea of inspiration. I mean, for us, it's specifically been in the case of writing, but because I remember talking to you a while back, and the whole mention you had about a friend of yours who sort of inspired you to start giving it a go. And yeah, it's when someone comes to you and says inspiration, like what is your view on it? Do you think it like where do you think inspiration comes from, or can it come from anywhere?
Mm, I guess if I have to explain how at least I view inspiration, for me it's like when I try to challenge myself into acquiring a new skill or trying to dabble in a field that I have never dabbled before. For example, sometimes I may say and like inspired to try and make a game in a specific genre, or like challenge my D&D group in an area like a maze that I have never done before in my campaigns. But I would say like I'm qualified for that, and like it's not really that kind of exploration. Like I'm dabbling in sort of like unknown territory, but at the same time I've charted through those streets at the same time. I don't know if you're following through, but it's for me, inspiration is really like the point where you say like I've never tried that thing before, and I have no clue how to do something. I will just, and like for example at this situation like writing, I never wrote before. Like I've always thought that my writing is dog shit in all honesty. But then like those friends, I started reading their works, and at first like I was proofreading them, and their works were dog shit. Like they couldn't even explain a sentence like properly. Like they would repeat themselves constantly, characters will go missing literally next sentence, it wouldn't make canonical sense in the story and all that jazz. But as the time progressed, like one of them has already written, oh excuse me.
Just to say again, everyone, I hope the audio is a bit better. I do appreciate that. There is still some technical stuff being worked out with that side of things.
Yeah, apologies. Just I had to take this. Yep. So to follow through on my thing is about the whole inspiration thing is to just push myself out of my comfort zone, and that's where I feel the real inspirations. And as I said, the inspiring thing from those friends were that like they actually got better from time, and at least in my brain is like, why can't I get better in this, right? So unless I start trying this, I will never know. So yeah, henceforth that's when I started speaking to you that I tried my first attempts at writing. I haven't gone too far. Like I've only written, I think, 4 chapters or something, and they're still like getting their total ass. But it's something in the right direction, at least in my opinion.
The Yeah, so when someone says, "What do you think of inspiration?" you're more along the lines of, "What do you get inspired to do?" Like instead of maybe you've been inspired by someone, you're more inspired to do something than by someone. So because the the way I sort of view it is inspiration can come from pretty much anywhere, but it doesn't necessarily. You can be inspired by something, but still do something with that inspiration, but in your own way. Like so, you are taking it as the inspiration, but you are making it your own instead of just doing a carbon copy of whatever inspired you.
Yeah, I agree to that. It like you take it as a base template and then you do it your own way, right? Because even if you try to make a carbon copy of whatever your friend is doing, it's probably not gonna be as good as his as well. Like because I maintain the thing that everybody has like their certain flair in everything they do, so it's always gonna be like their type. Even if I try to rewrite a paragraph, right? From somebody's friend, like, and I'm inspired by the whole situation, I'll probably put my own twist on it in some funny way, like change a word, make a synonym, or just your flair on the situation and how you view it.
Yeah. Um, would you obviously you have only just started in this, and if I'm being honest, I don't know the full extent of different experiences or knowledge that you have. But if anyone was looking to go into something creative, obviously main focus on young, but it can be anyone. Um, would you, from what you've learned already, what sort of advice would you maybe give them? What do you think of like the fundamentals when someone is going into a creative field, or not even just creative, just anything that they're driven or passionate about?
Um, I might sound like a broken record because most people say that, but I would just say just start it. Like, we live in this age where information is abundant. Like, not gonna lie, like, but I think like many people don't know how to use the internet as a whole. Like,
No.
and yeah, I feel like now like I'm sounding really controversial about this, but yeah, you get my point. Like, there is so much information you can acquire from the internet, and you can basically learn anything. Like, maybe not so much about like certain things like singing and all that, but you certainly can find like
and
really
not
valid
always and not always Wikipedia.
yeah, not always Wikipedia, and about like how to make your voice sound like higher or lower, or like exercises which like train your voice tones. Like, you can find those stuff, but don't think you'll find like a guide how to become a professional singer in like 6 months. No, no like background required or genes. It's it's really like how much you want to dabble. Like, my personal story of what I've learned through the internet is, for example, we use a software like TeamSpeak to communicate in games. And I don't know how much you've dabbled in the settings of the TeamSpeak, just setting a TeamSpeak like with all its icons, IPs, and everything to be that. I lit
Not at all.
Yeah, I would say it looks quite daunting and it looks quite scary, but I literally learned that from tutorials on the internet and trial and error on the TeamSpeak server. And I dare to say that like um, I'm pretty confident now. If you give me like a new TeamSpeak server, I can set it up in like 2 to 3 hours with everything working and nothing being like exposed and so on, and being all right organized TeamSpeak server. So yeah, uh, and I've learned many more things throughout from the internet as well. Uh, and probably most in my field, I've learned a whole bunch about coding and different coding languages just from the internet. Like, so yeah, you just have to know how to search things up pretty much. And as you said, don't believe in the first thing written. Like, Wikipedia isn't always the best way to find out about something.
There was a bit that you put on there, and I know you went down the route of searching things up, but the bit you said about we live in the the world we live in now, got the technology, got all of these things, and this may be going slightly off course because this isn't. It's indirectly connected to careers in my eyes, but you and I both have experience, and a lot of our friends have experience in different games and things like that. And most of us also have experience with using mods. Some of us have done a little bit of modding on ourselves or that. And I think obviously there is a risk of people becoming too obsessed with gaming and it going down a path where they can't do anything else or can't draw themselves away from it. But I think there is also one of these factors where a lot of people get such a negative mindset on young people gaming that they don't really recognize the sort of skills that happen behind the scenes. And on the face of it, when you've got a controller or something, you've got like hand-eye coordination skills and things like that, and like you have doctors or surgeons who have specific games that they are taught to play to try and improve themselves. But you have in some cases, but when you look for more in depth and you start looking at things like modding, I mean, Modding is not something that people earn money off of. It is passion. It is pure passion. It is a dedication to their time. And yet, what sort of skills come from it? You have people who can do digital artwork. You've got coding skills. You have, in some cases, script writing or just scripting stuff. And there, it's a world that for the people who are used to it, it does unlock a fair amount of skills and plethora and the plethora of skills rather, but it it can help also draw people into other things or inspire them to do other things. So yeah, I'm not saying like I'm not trying to encourage people to game 24/7. I'm not trying to do anything like that, but it it's one of those places like any generation, the young generation get misrepresented by a fair amount of the older. I would say is probably about 50-50, where you've got like 50% who sort of see the struggles that are ahead for us and see and understand like that we didn't ask for these things, but they're happening. Whereas the other half, well, and they also understand like what skills and what innovations and what directions we're going in, and then you've got the other half who say, no, you need to go and do this and this and this, and to quote you a little bit, start playing a little bit of a broken record. And but the gaming side's an interesting one because there is just there's a lot of potential there, and but a lot of the time for these people, that potential and those skills are there, but they use them as a passion and not their career. And I know that's not true for all of them, but that tends to be what I've taken from it. And because that's the other thing, a lot of people who do mods, they're young people, they're not old, and so these are people who are taking time out of their or taking time out of their holidays from studies or things like that, and they're dedicating it to something that they are passionate about, and it is something that hundreds, if not thousands, of people can then take enjoyment from. And in some cases, also people in some cases do just buy games for the mods, and so you even have it circling back and benefiting gaming companies in a very roundabout, indirect way. But it is interesting, and it's just it's one of those things where the young people potential, or the potential with modders is something that flies so under the bus because so many people don't know where to look to see it.
Mm, Yeah, just to put my whole preview of what you said is
Sorry, I
in
know
the
I rambled on for a bit there.
no, 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 no worries. It's more the I think it's that clash of generations you're saying. Like the older generation wants some solid set of skills, mainly to do with your physical skills, mainly to do with your arms. We have a saying in Bulgarian that if you do something, you do it with your arms, expressing that you do manual labor, right? And so on. And they can't really grasp this new technological side of things that you can actually like earn a decent living by doing something else which involves computers, right? And the younger generations, because they see so many like people being successful in the gaming industry, like all those professional gamers, like I mean CS:GO, World of Warcraft, name it, like any game which has an esports scene, right?
Yeah,
They they can make a fair bit of living, and it's that sort of thing that it's like trying to be a professional athlete, right? For example, at one point in time, when in my early age, I tried to become a professional basketball player, right? I'm long past my prime, by the way. So yeah, but I still play basketball. So in essence, like I threw in a bunch of effort and passion into something, right, to become something. But in the end, I realized that firstly, I'm not as tall to become ever a professional player, and secondly, like I'm born in the wrong country to become a professional basketball player. Just saying, if I was in Serbia, maybe. But I guess it's that sort of thing that like there's different perceptions of that. Like in Bulgaria, for example, we are heavily pushed here to become IT sector, like I mean actual programmers and such now. But like 15 years ago, it's all about being a doctor or being some sort of mechanic or mechanical engineer or like architect. I was gonna say the guy who builds buildings, but yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So and now it's becoming more like become an economist, become like something to do with like those mixed profession now, like economy and programming, sort of mix in between, like programming algorithms of how the stock market will do, like financial analyst, I think it's called. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong
Yeah.
about that. Yeah. So it's definitely that thing that like the older generation doesn't know of those new professions and they don't believe in them, and the younger generations doesn't want to admit to the old one, and like I'm stuck here in between the middle because I know what the older generation is saying and what the younger is saying, but at the same time like they're both right in their own way. Like you should always be able to do something with your arms, because who knows, one day maybe something happens and the whole internet grid falls. What are you gonna do? You
Hmm.
have to have like some basic skills of like how to take care of yourself. Like I'm not saying go full Bear Grylls or anything, but you should like at least know like crop rotation and how to water a plant, for example. Like these are simple stuff. And there is the opposite. What if the world like goes fully cyber? Like I'm not saying we're gonna reach the point like the Matrix or anything like that, or Terminator Judgment Day with Skynet or whatever that thing was called, and so on. But it's I would like my best form of advice to young people or even old is just give the other thing a shot. Like I'm not saying like give up your passion now to become a pro gamer or be your staunch self and believe in the old ways. It's more like keep your beliefs and like keep pushing forward for your dreams. But in the end of the day, be a realist and accept the other points of view. Like
Yeah.
my grandparents, both sides, have given me so much knowledge of how to like raise crops. Like take care of animals and whatnot, that yeah, maybe I will never have like an animal farm of my own, but who knows, it may come in handy. And so it's like I have given them like how to use a telephone, how to communicate with me through Skype back in the old days. And yeah, so it's literally about that balance, that there is lessons to learn from both sides, but just don't be an idiot and say I'm standing firm on the progression side and I'm standing firm on the old side. Be lenient, basically.
Yeah. It's. I mean, you know what I'm doing, and I would. I would say that I lean more to progression than I do tradition, but the way that I view like tradition, and I will openly say I do have some more of the homegrown skills than quite a few people do. But it's one of those things where I view obviously what's going on over here is a bit full of uncertainty at the moment, is the best way of putting it. Um, and the I stand on the case of there are changes on the horizon. They're going to be coming, and you can start seeing that now. Because one thing that I did see was I think I saw this like last week or something. The recently a finding came out that stated that self-employment over here is the highest it's been in 4 decades. And you've got other things going on, and it seems like it seems almost like the people who are heavily encouraging the younger generations to take up these new opportunities that they've got in the world they're growing up in. Half the half the time are the young, and half the time are like the almost the people who educate us, and whether that's parents, grandparents, like you said, or teachers. And it's one of those things, and a lot of it is a generational difference, but there are more ways, and it's not just through the internet, like, it's through other things as well, just in the day and age we live in. There are more ways to do the things you are passionate about. We live in a day and age where you can turn almost anything into a sort of career or a form of a career. The the thing is the the ultimate thing that I hold from it is that we can't forget where things came from with the old traditional job roles and everything and that, and they're still going to exist for quite some time, maybe forever, but that doesn't automatically make these new careers or these people who are doing these things wrong or bad, because and it doesn't I think there is a difference between the people who advise in favor of the traditional job roles but understand like the new opportunities are there and everything, and then those who just stubbornly cling on to the old ways. And I would argue the same for the new as well. Like you said, like there are those who argue for just new all the time, but then there are those who say, no, it needs to be a bit more balanced than that. You need to, I mean, any person who studies history knows the sort of classical cliche of those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And it's like you can take that into any field. You can't go all new and just abandon the old, but you can't also just automatically expect the people who are, I mean, if I was to pick this country for an example in recent years, a generation who have been rather heavily alienated away from traditional views because, in terms of leadership and society and business, because they've seen what happens with that. And you can't just automatically expect them to just go into the old because they are set to the new, and maybe it's a case that they try the new, they find out they don't like it, and they end up going to the old, or vice versa, or maybe doing a bit of both. It we're in a day and age now where jobs and opportunities have an incredible amount of flexibility about them, and that is something that people are pushing more and more for. And it's it's one of those things where it a lot of it just boils down to the generation stuff. I mean, we keep circling back to it, but it's the case of you just and you have it with almost every generation. Every generation has a form of this, and ours is in the form of technology and careers in a lot of cases. And you've just got to, like you said, both sides need to learn from each other. And that does mean that people sometimes have to get out of their own way. um, because all of it is opportunity, all of it is careers, and there's nothing wrong with any of it. It's someone trying to either learn a new skill or go into a career they're passionate about, or any of these things. They're trying to earn a living in the way that they think is best suited to their own skills, and they deserve the chance to be allowed to do that. And you don't have to be young to try and do that. You can be older and just go in and try something new. There's no age limit on trying something new.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Um, like for example, of one of those you can try things older. I recently went about an article about how a dad started his own Twitch channel streaming Fortnite, and it's quite successful right now, but I'll give you the whole gist of it. He started playing with his sons when Fortnite came about and started streaming, right, in his old dial. And now his like kids grew up and they no longer play Fortnite, but he continued to play Fortnite, right? And he grew into a big channel. Like he's basically becoming everybody's dad there on Twitch, for example. And that guy is like, I think, 50 plus, and like yeah, he's like technically started streaming, and it's completely irrelevant to his job. I also have seen like other really old people play. Like there was one grandma who played like World of Warcraft or something, and she was really big in her own way. So uh, it's a little bit harder to like do when you're old age, right?
Yeah.
But it's still possible, like it's still on the table. um, but yeah, as you said, we're again, as I repeat, you circle back to generation things. I just wanted to add though that the problem with the old generation is that, for example, you all know that your family thinks of the best about you. Like at least this is how we are taught here in Bulgaria. Your family thinks the best about you. So my father, when he speaks to me how technology is bad and how computer is bad and how I should, for example, pick up something else that games, right? He is speaking from his own way because like he's been studying economics, he's working his own like business thing and something like that, and he basically tries to infer all the skills he gathered from the world, right, and put them onto me because he knows that he managed to do get a living of him, like have me and my brother sustain a family with these set of skills, right? So it goes from my grandfather, right? He has worked his way up through society, especially in the communist years and all that. He got a certain set of skills, and he's trying to pass it down to me because he knows that it works, right? And to those generations, like the older ones, it's quite tough to explain them that like you not that you don't want their skills, but that you want to focus on a different set of skills,
Mm, yeah,
which, yeah,
it's the sort of question of my family has set up this life for me. How do I tell them I don't want it, or how do I
yeah,
tell them I want? How do I tell them I want to go and do something different? And I think a sort of follow on onto that with the old setup and everything is tried and true methods. Okay, and you can live your own life by them, but sometimes you do have to. And yes, this is more directed for the young. It is the case of the world moves forward, but you can't forget the lessons of old. Whereas for the old, it's the case of the world moves forward, and you can hold to your own values. You can live your own life by them. But when it comes to others, especially the young, you do have to understand that the values that you have been brought up by, lived by, may not be the same that they have, and it in a lot of cases it is because the world has changed and because different things have risen to prominence, and or just the situation has changed where the foundations of your beliefs are not necessarily the same anymore. It's not calling your beliefs bad. It's just it's just being realistic. It's just recognizing that it's recognizing that you're not trying to get ahead of yourself in terms of ahead of the world in terms of where it's at, but at the same time you're not being stuck in the past. You're you have to take elements of both, but you have to live in the present. Essentially, you have to sort of you have to live in the present, plan for the future, and remember the past.
I would call this adaptability.
Yep.
It's basically like I think that's like my coin phrase. Like when somebody says I adapt to the world, is basically that taking the lessons from the past, acknowledging the now, and then having a plan for the future. Because like whoever says that like lives only for the moment, you can do that only if you're like doing like parties or something. If you're really like
Mhm.
planning how you live the rest of your life, you have to like take into account certain things. Like for example, now I would say, at least in Bulgaria, right? It's quite prominent to become a programmer, right? And my generation and like the next five generations before me, and I would say the before me three generations, and the next five generation after me, that's gonna produce a lot of programmers, right? So in 10 years time, right? If you're now like what 15 years old and you say like in 10 years I want to be a big programmer, your field is probably going to be the most saturated, right? At least in this country, in Bulgaria. So you have like you either have to be the very best or you have tough times finding a job. So if you think about those things, you can say then like, oh, if you understand that, then you probably say, okay, I'll take a less popular job right now. I'll be like a mechanic or something to do with something else, right? Which is not that prominent. And in 10 years' times, the roles will reverse. Your job will be the most sought after job, right? It will be way easier. You probably get a decent pay out of it as well, find tons of work. So future proofing your ideas is always is good. So another example with me, I want to become a game designer. I still want to become a game designer. The market for game designing is niche. Like if I want to work for a AAA company, I can probably name the AAA companies like with two hands, the big ones, right, which produce
Yeah,
big.
it's really not that many.
It's really not that many. So furthermore, I want to become the lead game designer. So I want my name to be like head honcho Yovko made this game, right? So my choices are seven firms. I have to be the very best of the best to access there, right? So it's like realistically, it's still a dream. I'll try it forward, but realistically, my chances of succeeding in there are slim. But like, so that's why like right now like I still keep my game design as a passion and work for it on the side, but I still do other jobs in the meantime because I have to provide for myself. So don't go, I wouldn't say like don't follow your dreams, but keep it realistic in what your like goals are. Like sometimes you have to like first secure like your near future so you can continue working on a project, then going full out and gambling everything on a single chance. Sometimes it works, but I'm not a gambling man.
Yeah, I I mean, not really sure how to really respond to that because what I'm doing at the moment is, but obviously, again, again, I still really don't even know how to really term what's going on over here, but it's one of those things where, with what I'm doing, it's not. I'm not just trying to write a singular book and just build a career off of that. I'm writing. I'm looking into other projects that relate to it. I'm aware of the fact that if this is going to turn into my if this is my career and this is what I am continuing, then it's going to have to be, whilst the books can be the mainstay of it, it will have to be more than that. And the yeah, it's
Like from what I know about you, right, and we've discussed through here, I I think you have the necessary skills to fall back on something if it doesn't go your way, right? I'm pretty sure you're up to that. So uh, yeah, you're trying something different. That like you're trying something new, and you're trying your best to achieve that. But I'm pretty sure you have sort of like a fallback plan, and something doesn't go awry with this. Like, or at least you have the skills necessary to find a decent job and earn a decent living.
Yeah, and a lot of it does also fall back on, like you brought it up with programmers and that you said about the job market being saturated or things like that. And you have to be aware of these things, and the the reality over here is you've got more young people going freelance, you've got more of them going self-employed and things, and then you look out at what's actually going on in the job market over here, and you do understand why that is happening. And yeah, there's a lot that needs fixing over here, and that will take time. But the I think the thing about it is that when you're thinking about your career, when you're thinking about what you're doing, you have to think in the long term, but you have to also not be so tunnel visioned on a plan that any random event could throw you off. Because something, anything that's in the creative industry, there's no just. I could use myself as an example. I could use a filmmaker or an artist. All these things are long term. Creating something takes time. Game design is like one of the biggest things. Like game design can sometimes take years, and it's Bannerlord is a good example of that.
Yeah, true, true.
The the whole thing is that creation takes time, and it takes longevity, and it takes a long term thinking. You can't go into an industry like this and think on the short term, and it it is an understandable thing because I mean, if you want examples of things coming out of absolutely nowhere or things taking unexpected turns, I think the last 4 or 5 years are pretty good examples of that. And it's,
Oh, oh yeah, definitely, especially the pandemic.
yeah, and
People are still reeling from it,
yeah, yeah.
especially here.
And the, so when you're thinking in the long term, you have to think on the long term, but with a space, with a gap that has room for flexibility or potentially an alteration in the direction. But I'm going to say it outright to pretty much any sort of career out there. You can't really think in the short term. Like you can have the intention to do a job for a small amount of time before moving on to something else. Fair enough, but if you're thinking in your career and it's like I'm going to get here within 2 or 3 years, okay, then what? What happens if something happens in the middle of that? What about all these different things? And no one can predict life. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is that you have to be ready for life to throw a curveball in, whether it's a personal or global, something really random. Like, it could be any of these things. But I'm I'd call myself a strategic thinker and someone who thinks in the long term. And I would say that a learning curve that I have had is that having to take into account things that can come out of nowhere and impact you, or things that you know are coming but maybe have a bigger impact on you than you initially realized. You have to be aware of these things, you but I would still hold into being a long term thinker with a long term plan. And yeah, a lot of that comes off of the back of people my sort of age over here have pretty much taken on the chin the part of the damage that short term thinking's just done. And yeah, it's not great. And there's when you're when you have a target, when you have a goal, there is always you have to be prepared of road bumps, and you always have to be thinking maybe, okay, even if it's just a thought in the back of your head of questioning, okay, I've gotten to this point, I've achieved this goal. Now what? Am I happy remaining here? Do I want more? Do I want to do something else now? It's all these things, and I think that's I think that's why in the sort of creative stuff that I'm doing, I enjoy it quite a bit because I've always got more than one project on the go, and I've always got another one that's in the planning stage, or there's something else. So it's like I've got both these things. I've got and getting and when it comes to like the order of completion, the order of writing, and that, like I have a loose plan, but it's a plan that's already changed a few times, just coming up to where we are now. So I've learned from that, and it's like this could change again. I could stop writing this and turn over to this, or I could pick this one and just focus most of my energy on this, which is something I may not be anticipating at the moment. And you, there's a lot of different lessons with the career side of things, and again, the biggest one is you can't predict life, but you have to be prepared for it to throw a curveball. Even if that curveball never comes, it's always better to just be prepared for it.
Yeah, like we're circling back, like I call that adaptivity again, just to like yeah, um, because like what I learned from my COVID experience, because you probably know, but I was on a placement in Germany when COVID hit me. So I had to face a really strict Western lockdown in, in the town I was. I couldn't leave the house at all,
You,
pretty
you,
much.
call, you call it a strict Western lockdown. Did you see the likes New Zealand implemented?
Probably worse. Or was it lax? I don't know. But I just know that like everybody could like my family because there were lockdown in my own house were like socializing, but I was alone because I was on my placement, and I lived in a town near the big city where my job place was. So even all my colleagues from work were far away from me. So I had like I think for 5 months I had literally zero social interaction apart from the internet and the delivery guy. but but yeah, that was the really hard time then for me. As you said, like I would consider myself also a big strategic thinker. Like before I would really place high goalposts on my thing. Like I would say, like I'll have university done in this year. I'll reach this position by that year. By the time I'm 35, I will be like already done my first AAA game and all that, like long-term planning. But when COVID happened, that was my big realization, though, that like uh, you can plan for those things. And right now, I have adapted to this with any task or anything I pick up. I make myself do small tasks for the day. For example, I picked up running 3 months ago. Uh, it's not that I'm fat or anything. It's just like I wanted to run more. Like I wanted to potentially finish a 5 kilometer race. That's another hand. But basically, I started doing so that I would try to set my alarm so I can get up 6:30 in the morning, and beforehand, like I've always woken around 9. So that was my first step. Then, like after a week of successfully waking up 6:30, I would try to go for a run at 7:30. After that succeeded, I would do like a longer run, and like those small goals pile up. And right now, like I'm in such a good condition that I can probably run 2 kilometers, right, with an average pace and everything. Like it's still like half the way to 5 kilometers, but it's progress to the thing. And that whole ordeal took me 3 months and something, right? Just to get to this point. And it's all about like always moving the goalpost. And like I've had certain situations where I had to put a lot more emphasis on university, so I failed my running schedule, or I was sick, and you know when you're sick you can't really run. So it's, even though those things happened, I'm still pushing my goal forward, and I'm sort of going along to achieve my goal. So it's just consistency and just determination to reach the next small step you've set up to yourself. Shit happens, but adapt to it. Just because you missed one training doesn't mean the whole progress is over. It will just take longer, pretty much.
Going, because just aware of time and everything, going to move on to a couple of final bits, including the final sort of question that's pretty much the only part of all of this that will be repeated every week. Well, every week, every episode. So ways off from being every week yet. um,
As we said, short-term goals, short-term goals.
yeah, that short term goal at the moment is to try and get, maybe not published, but get a video done each week. Doesn't matter if it's the podcast or something else, but that's it. So, and okay, so this is it, and this is relating to a a problem that does relate a fair part to COVID and a sort of the shadow it's cast is a good way of phrasing it. A lot of people, and this is not limited to the young, although the young are feeling it quite a lot as well, probably more than a lot of people are realizing. Um, Throughout the world, this isn't limited to UK. I'm sure Bulgaria has it as well, and other places have it. We talked about it last time with Sweden. Would you have any advice for people who are dealing with like apathy towards the world or just absolute burnout from what they're doing, and like would you have any advice for them or
Mm, like I can maybe share my experience of how I deal with this, but like it depends on the thing is, right? Everybody views the world and like hates it or loves it for various of reasons. Like for example, I'm a dog lover. That doesn't mean I hate cats, but I prefer dogs over cats, right?
yep,
uh yeah, so it's what I could say, what works for me is like, for example, today I've tried to make a game, or I tried to code something, or I tried tackling something new. For example, I was telling you that I was trying to work with OBS. And let me tell you, the first 2 hours of me trying to learn how to use OBS and set it up to work for me was really challenging. Don't ask me why. I was a complete buffoon. Probably like I had something that day that wasn't really like my mind was scattered or something. And I couldn't pull through. And those 2 hours, like I literally sat there, read tutorial after tutorial, and I couldn't get my thing working, which I wanted to do. And when I'm tackled with that, and I was feeling really like angry, like I was starting to hate everything, like nothing is working out today, and so on. So what I did was I just picked up my basketball and I went and just for like 1 hour just played basketball all alone, like just throwing shots at the rim, right, attacking it, and so on. And after an hour, I came back, had dinner, I think, and then I proceeded to do the same thing. So for me, it works by taking a break. And by taking a break, I don't mean like just leaving the thing and then going on the couch, drinking coffee and thinking about the thing. It's completely abstracting myself from the thing which was causing me problems right now, right? Or I'm struggling to do, and focus my mind and energy on something else. And after I've completed that task, and I've completed the task, I then come back and do it again with a renewed mindset. Because for me somehow, like, when I finally complete something, I'm in a better mindset to complete the next thing than if I'm in a losing mindset, like I haven't completed anything and a downer of myself. And yeah, it's not going to work out. So I have to do something to complete actually. Same goes for one of my jobs as well. Like whenever I feel like I'm not doing too well in that job, like bear in mind I have the flexibility to do this, I postpone my work for the next day or for the next day when I'm feeling confident about my work because it requires precision for it. And then I do it. And every time I do it, I feel more precise. I have tried to crunch 3 or 4 times and doing a task like when I feel I'm not really up to condition or not fully invested in that task. And I can tell you it takes like at least double the time if you want to complete it. And most likely you've done a mistake somewhere along the line with the task. So I guess it's like the whole point I'm getting is when you feel down, always try to lift yourself up. Yeah, that sounds like stupid because everybody has told you, but in reality, it's up to you. So find a way how you lift yourself up. It could be playing a game, it could be drawing something, it could be um, doing 10 math equations. Like everybody has a thing they do that they're supposedly really good at. Uh, for example, currently my stress relief sort of is playing Tetris. Don't ask why, but I just feel calm when I play
Interesting.
Tetris. Yeah. And I play like 3 or 2 games of Tetris. I try to get as many lines as I can. I play Tetris.io if anybody wants to check it out. And it's pretty much that. And then like I start doing my task, and it works now for me. And bear in mind, like as I said, I always change my things I do. Like I don't always play Tetris. Sometimes I go play basketball. Sometimes I do something else. It's just finding the thing which you complete and boost your mindset to being in the one. If you still stay in that like down mindset, whatever you do will probably not go well, especially if it's stressing you out. So just try to pull yourself together. And oh, one more thing. Don't ever remain sitting still and telling yourself how the day is bad and it's not going to get any better, because you not doing anything won't change the fact. You're just admitting what the present is. So you have to do something about it. Yeah, it could fail, but just do it. You never know. You might succeed.
What's a what about if the specifically on the apathy bit, not so much burnout. But what if the apathetic attitude they have is this might be more addressed to the youth, but it's more towards how they're seeing the world go. How would you? What advice would you give to them if the empathy wasn't about something they were struggling with in terms of a task? It was more they were struggling to they were struggling with how the world's going.
Ah, this this is for me. This is also how I view the world. So again, big disclaimer here. If something like the day or like I viewed it today, the world is not going my way and like everything is going wrong. Like, why is that clerk being mean to me? Why is that teacher yelling at me? Why is my boss angry with me? Like, I'm getting all the negatives, right, from the world and everything around me. Like, I can't even cook proper eggs. I burn them. Damn that stove I'm using and burning the eggs. But how I perceive it is that even if I'm hating it, like everything around me is hating me, I still believe that like if I just grit my teeth through it and sort of become like, I wouldn't say a beacon, but be positive, even if all that shit is happening, and just, I wouldn't say suffer through it, but bear it, like bear the brunt of it, you will start seeing that like other people who suffer from that thing look up to you, and they look up to you and you become like sort of their like what's it called? Like, give them, uh, encourage them that life is not so bad. And I believe in this, that in order for me to feel well and like in my surrounding, everybody around me in my close vicinity, friends, family, and all that also should feel well. So in part of me doing this and like bearing through the front, like I sort of in a way condition myself to like boost other people, and they in return boost me as well. Because it's like it's really hard to explain, but yeah, it's basically about the whole thing that you either have to find somebody who is like a beacon to that to look up to and fight through it, or you just have to become one of those things. In my case, I find it really easy for me to become, and like most of the times right now, like beforehand it was the opposite, but most of the times right now I'm always the smiling one and just grinning my way through the world, even though like shit happens to me on a daily basis that I can curse it. But it's, yeah, it's that thing of just spreading through it and keeping a positive outlook on it.
All right. Well, I think now we will move on to the final question, and it's more specific onto careers and passions, and it is this. If you got a job offer that would pay you over 1 million, I really don't know what currency Bulgaria uses.
Shameful display. It's the
Euro
lev.
is what?
Lev. Lev.
Lev. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So if the job offer would pay you 1 million lev, and the job is doing a role that you had no real desire for or interest in going into, but the catch of it was that it meant you would have to give up working on your passion. And I mean, you would have to give up on it for years, potentially, if you ever were able to pick it up again. But it did pay you 1 million lev. Would you take it?
You've added a lot of bonus things to it. Like, um, you never said that I couldn't pick up my passion again. So potentially in the future, or I should, like, if I take up this offer, that means I can never follow my passion. Can you discern this?
Yep. Okay.
So
If
I can never. Okay, yeah.
if it was a job you had no real desire for or interest in going into, but it meant whilst you were doing this job, you had to give up working on your passion.
Okay, but as I said, I can pick it up after the years have passed and I've done this job, right? Or I completely forfeit my passion for the rest of my life.
I mean, we could do it in a two-prong question, but on the first prong, I'll harken back to what we were talking about
Okay,
thinking the long
okay,
term and curveballs.
okay. I'll tell you like this. It will sound opposite of what we've been preaching so far and so forth, but this comes down to that I kind of already thought this through before you asked me this question, like at one point in my life, and I would actually take that just on the premise, like, hear me out. Yes, I'm sacrificing my passion and the dreams, right? But in the end of the day, we live in the world where money is the thing we require to live by, right? And as you said, if it pays really good, like it pays over $1 million or whatever, or left, or whatever currency is in your country, you have to think how you can do with that money. For example, if the contract is 10 years or even 25, right? And I get $1 million each year or less. Um, I can, yeah, technically, I will suffer through that misery, but I know that after those 25 years are done, I would literally have secured my well being in the world, probably, most likely, hopefully, if I don't spend it all on anything. I would have also have provided the sum to my children and all that, and everything will be resolved. And that would actually allow me, after those 25 years, to put all my time and effort into my passion. So basically, I won't have to think about money anymore because I would have paid the last 25 years into making this so I can focus on my passion. But if we separate the question and we say that I have to forfeit my passion and my dreams just for this job and money, that I'll say no, I won't take it because I want to have the chance, like the dreams are meant to be followed. I don't want to be just the next office prick who stays in his office, works a big salary, gets six numbers, and the only thing I can brag about is my new car, new apartment, trophy wife, and how I'm better than everybody else. Like, nah, I want to be defined by my passions, by like the work I put into. And yeah, so I hope this answer
So,
suffices.
so yes, if it's for a temporary time, but if it's forever, no.
Yep, pretty much.
All right. Well, with that, we shall wrap it up. And yeah, um, yeah, I did make it a bit too wordy this time. I do apologise for that. And well, thank you for joining me, my friend.
I'm glad to
And
been I'm glad I've been on this podcast.
yep, and I am aware of what you said when I initially asked you, and the next time you might be on will be with our mutual friend as well.
Hell yeah!
Oh, I hope I'll endure that. uh, right.
Trust.
Well, thank you all for watching or listening. Um, we've got the usual of comment, like, and subscribe. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can take a look at the books The Defenders of Athalas, Liberation of Destiny, and Code of Chivalry, both available on ebook format only on the Lulu bookstore. The links will be in the description. And yes, um, I'm not quite sure that there is a possible chance that this episode and the following one are going to come out in a bit of a quicker succession than the last time, and that's not so much because Christmas coming up. That's more just because of how things have turned out and availability of my guests. So, but yes, thank you all for watching, and until next time, welcome to the kingdom of Athalas and the world of Fellowmind books.